Welcome back to another video of me ranting about a trivial piece of plastic. Today I will be talking about the Hammond Collection T-Rex.
Too late. 15 years too late.
Anything that Mattel makes is cumbersome, underwhelming, and generally embarrassing due to the fact that a multi-billion-dollar company that possesses a lot of resources in the world, or all the resources, cannot seem to commission a movie-accurate or, a properly inspired sculpt with very good sculpting, details, or tooling, etc., or, that stuff. I understand the term, quote-unquote, inspired, varies in context, but it's mostly used in the case of when you catch someone's work being awful and you rightfully critique it, only for them to backpedal as they refuse to take any feedback, so they use the term as a scapegoat to compensate for their failures. That is Mattel pretty much summarized. Forget scientific accuracy. How about proper proportions? Movie accuracy, please? Again, I apologize for being facetious, but Mattel's mainline toys are absolutely insulting from both an entertaining and novelty perspective. Marco made a pretty good video discussing why the proportions of this toy sucks, but this toy is supposed to be the launch, the first impressions, if you will, where you would get hooked, leaving you wanting more. I'm sure you're smart enough to know why this isn't the case. Hey, the moment the shift ended at the minimum wage job, I stumbled across something when I was doing my, daily NPC walk at Target, I suppose. I did the Poggers face for about 3.2 seconds, only for a middle-aged, loveless dog, to stare at me during the oddly specific amount of time as I put my dirty, filthy paws in the box. As my soy jack eyes filled with glittering glee, I realized that I recently obtained a credit card, because it was in my wallet. This credit card got me that something, and that something is the Hammond Collection T-Rex. Any more questions? I don't know what to think about this thing anymore. On one hand, the fragmented remains of the child inside of me admires this thing beyond belief, as the overall pessimistic, cynical, miserable adult that I am now doesn't, because the beast of the Mesozoic T-Rex left a sour taste in my mouth, and I am dreading the rest of the Tyrannosaurids and the future theropod line. Get your shit together, David, or I will. On the BOTM T-Rex review, I completely glossed over the arms. I didn't mention anything about them for the keen-eyed viewers in the audience. I am truly sorry. I completely overlooked them as my intention was focused on the disappointing articulation, mostly around the bullshit neck hoodie. But to give you what you guys deserve, the 1/18th version has three points of articulation within the arms. 1/18th and 1/35th possess ball joints within the shoulders and elbow hinges. Joints, more specifically, they can the elbows can bend 90 degrees and they can swivel. However, due to the amount of plastic the 1/18th has, it can afford to add another hinge joint within the wrist. Now, now that I've paid off my debts, onto the video. The Hammond Collection is supposed to be and is advertised as a premium line of figures meant for mature audiences. The term adult collectors is insulting and is alienating, but the point is Mattel needs to drop their dog shit art style aesthetic, which is a major detriment to their sales. I'm sorry, but this isn't going to cut it. Blunt everything isn't going to make things safer as you advertise for mature audiences. I get some retards can't look you in the eye and tell you what a woman is, but if my Rex toy generally lacks proper anatomy and good detailing, lower general proportions, or is generally inaccurate to its cinematic incarnation, you could go fuck yourself on your merry way, as you asked me for $56 plus tax. The head is essentially a slightly retooled and reused head from the previous Rexes that Mattel made. One thing I absolutely loathe is how they engineer a toy that ends up having certain problems. Problems it shouldn't even have. For example, the lower jaw can open as much, so to compensate, they made so that when the jaw opens, a mechanism within the head forces the upper skull segment to unhinge to give the illusion of a further maw. This is a feature present in all the Rexes. The snout is way too wide, to the point where the general antorbital fossa segment is which is the side of the face, the cheekbones, if you will. It just shoved to the side, it cannot possess binocular vision. The glass eyes do not attempt to remedy the problem either. It alleviates the for example, it doesn't alleviate either. The glass eyes are slanted, even though the Rex should have rounded pupils. The promotional images show painted eyes, which is more akin to what we are accustomed to, so that is false advertising, but the pupil is so recessed back, it cannot even demonstrate the illusion of false tracking, like what proper glass eyes are supposed to be. Like what the lacrimal crest, moving on to that, I suppose, near the post-orbital region is obstructing the eyes as well. The side profile doesn't help either. On the base of exaggerated brows of the toy. It isn't curved or progressed as shown on the original animatronics or the ILM models. The head oddly possesses the most amount of detail across the entire body, which is a shame. The general scale variation and osteoderms, or larger scale segments, are more emphasized than the rest of the body. Pardon me. The head in general, I think I was referring to the lower and upper jaw segments. I would like to compliment how the general head is sculpted in a manner which complements articulation in terms of general movement. Meaning, when you want to look down or up, despite it being held by a single ball joint, it could still have more range of motion than the $250 Beast of the Mesozoic T-Rex, which is a shame. It is embarrassing. There's no way to look at it than that, I suppose. The neck or ball joint is concealed by a rubber neck piece. On a side note, the paint on this thing is peeling, and my copy is starting to peel. Quality control issues, I assume. The teeth are blunt, and they are not as thin or sharp as I would like them to be. The tongue is way too long, although although I do like the rubbery-like material. I prefer if the tongue was a bit shortened. The rubber gum lines are something else I could see how someone would dislike this due to potentially ripping in the future, and a solid plastic piece would have been better. But I personally like the rubber gum lines. That's all I could say for the head personally that I could observe. I do not know why they decided to, go about sculpting the Rex this way. It is slightly proportional. It's a slightly proportional Rex from the main lines, without the gimmicks. The anatomy is way off. For some of you paleo nerds, I'm sure you could point to the things that put you off. For example, thighs are way too rounded. That is this quote unquote muscle definition of the thigh. What is it? What is this muscle definition? Why are the thighs so big? Why is the stomach so sinking in? In contrast with the thighs. Why are the feet so big? It most certainly doesn't help with balance. The joints are either too loose or way too tight to make the figure stand. Going back to the feet are not even properly flat. They are taken from the Legacy collection. They have weird arches. Why is the pubis bone non-existent? I get Spielberg asked if it to be circumcised regarding audience approval, but god damn, no gastralia either? Frankly, the combination of thick thighs, lack of gastralia, and proper pubis bone worked in tangent to make this general sculpt look horrible in terms of general silhouette. Also, the tail is bizarre. It has this constant thickness. The length is good, but the general sculpt of the tail is bad compared to the Beast of the Mesozoic counterpart. I'm actually going to start using this reference in terms of sculpt. I'm going to use and anything else from now on. The tail has this progressive reduction of thickness, which is literally seen in most representations of T-Rex in media. The tail is so oddly droopy, it doesn't act like a proper counterbalance. Speaking of which, the rest of the tail is inconsistent. With this rubber, for example, where, I can admire its somewhat existent, non-existent detailing, it's abrupt when you try to, move it in general. It just feels as if it's about to rip off beyond what, the very badly bendy wire that I think I broke forcefully trying to remove it. Mind you, all this is just me referring to the general silhouette of the sculpt, and affects the articulation. I haven't even gotten to the actual detailing yet, but I will now. Everything is generalized, vague. This thing is like a fever dream. You can kind of make out what you're seeing, but not really. I wasn't exaggerating when I said the head is the most detailed. For some reason, the fans, you may recognize and recall that the underbelly of sorts, the JP Rex, possess these pronounced crocodilian large scales on the chest, on its underbelly. You would be right, but unfortunately, the scales and quite literally everything on the body is so vague, sanded off, neutered. There's no prominent scale detailing across the body. When I grab a dinosaur toy, I better hope I could do this to it. Fucking finally, everything about this guy's articulation is just so fun to handle. The neck is on a single dumbbell ball joint, just like this one other overpriced sack of shit I have constantly staring at me, but but it moves so much easier. The neck has a pseudo rubber neck piece that scratches off paint and tears, so that kills two birds with one stone, the worst way possible, I guess. The arms, that's right, going straight for the chicken wings this time, no hesitation. Fuck, the shoulders are hard to move. The elbows are hard to move as well. I guess they could swivel and bend. I don't know at this point. The wrist as well. The legs, the thighs more accurately, can move 360 degrees. Knees are double jointed, given the ability to bend. Ankles can bend this much. Feet could swivel and sort of pivot. The waist is on a ball joint. It could, it could do what a ball joint does, swivel and ball joint things. Same goes for the base of the tail and part of the tail that connects to the via rubber, which I absolutely hate. There's no need to have. You know what? Watch Marco's videos. He goes more in depth in this than I do. But theropod anatomy, let alone general Sauriskian anatomy, doesn't consist of perfectly circular citations for the tail articulation, like this area right here. And a tail is used strictly as a counterbalance to tie together with any muscles and tendons for sauropodomorphs, possibly a weapon for self-defense. Other than that, presenting a functionality that defies all logic and makes things harder for you in the production process. Paint job. Browns and beiges. What a phenomenal, totally original color scheme. I kid. I can't act as if paleo artists then and now were any better. Using nature as a reference has its limits till you start making shit up in the name of speculation. I do like the black stripes. I am a big fan of natural colorations, and is this movie accurate to any capacity? I have no idea. The ILM JW model is just one solid color, and I don't even know what specific shade of brown it was in JP1. The only striking color variants were the buck and doe in The Lost World. Hey, at least the toes and dew claws are painted. We should be grateful for doing the bare minimum. Accessories? Fucking none. For $50, you're asking too much. Within my infinite wisdom, I was so impatient to the point that I had to rush the review because I completely forgot there was a size comparison segment. So I apologize for being impatient. Okay? Now, here is the size comparison. We will be looking over, here's the size comparison with the original Stegosaurus. Here's the size comparison with Rex, of course, with its respective counterpart. The Hammond Collection Concavenator Ceratosaurus, the beast of the Mesozoic Triceratops, Mintel's Diabloceratops and Kentrosaurus, Hammond Collection Pachycephlasaurus, and here's just a few notable mentions so we could get this, so we could get a bit of a consensus. And yeah, I hope I clear things up over here. Unfortunately, this is another case of sculpt and articulation imbalance. Unlike the Beast of the Mesozoic T-Rex, where there was a clear emphasis and favorability on the sculpt, which ultimately hindered the articulation severely, again, you can argue quality control issues, design philosophy, etc. All those are valid points. Here's a similar thing going on. The sculpt is pathetic, frankly. It is very underwhelming compared to the Beast of the Mesozoic counterpart. The tail is very flimsy, and come to think of it, everything about this thing is somewhat floppy to handle. I can't even stand it properly due to loose joints. But I'll say this toy is pretty fun to have. It's truly a shame and disappointing what it could have been. We either get extremely expensive figures that can barely do the bare minimum, but just exist to look pretty, but on the other hand, you have ugly ones that could do what you ask them to do. It's just like the PC and Mac aesthetic, This is perhaps a philosophical commentary about intimacy and how you should date or marry an ugly chick, because they won't betray you or whatever. Insert meandering straw man here. What score do I give it? Do I recommend to pick it up? I give it a 6 out of 10, and only get it when it's on sale. Remember to vote with your wallets, not your hearts. Goodbye, everyone.